Good morning, everyone. I didn't expect that. Thank you. My name is Jarquetta Edgiston, and I serve as Dean of Students for the Graham School. On behalf of our esteemed Dean's Party, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Graham School Diploma Ceremony. I extend my warmest congratulations to all those receiving degrees and certificates today and acknowledge the support that has helped you along the way. To all the family and friends who are with us, and to those who could not be here in person and are watching the ceremony or thinking of graduates as we celebrate this moment, thank you. We have organized a wonderful roster of student, alumni, and faculty speakers to address you today. To get us started, I would like to welcome Seth Green, Dean of the Graham School for Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies, for his inaugural graduation speech. Dean Green, the mic is all yours.
Thank you, Jarquetta, and let me just start by echoing Jarquetta's welcome. This is a really wondrous moment. Congratulations to the class of 2022. And congratulations to the family and friends that are vicariously graduating with them. We know you have been with them every step of the way, and so we want to applaud you also. So graduates, you will soon be conferred with a diploma from the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. And you will be joining a storied institution, not only at this university, but in higher education at large. The Graham School was a founding division of this university in 1890. And it was actually one of the very first schools of continuing education in the entire United States and sparked the movement that William Rainey Harper had in view, that learning should be a lifelong pursuit and that it should happen at all ages and stages of life. Indeed, when he was setting up what was then called University Extension, he said, and I quote, "I have a vision to offer evening courses for men and women whose daily occupation will not permit them to take advantage of the regular college and university courses." It's exactly 130 years since University Extension began offering its first courses in downtown Chicago in 1892. And you all continue that history. And we continue in partnership with you by bringing education in ever more innovative ways from this university to you. And I know we've had a few challenges over the last few years, but together we've weathered them in the spirit that Harper originally had. And many of you, when I think about Harper's words, fulfill them directly. You are professionals who are trying to find ways to get educated, to advance your mind, to advance your skills. And so you are, in our mind, the continuation of that incredible legacy. One aspect of Graham that is truly unique, and you all see this, and you'll hear as we confer your degrees, you are coming from so many different backgrounds, and you are headed in even more directions. Looking out, I see future teachers, I see future administrators in emergency management, I see future leaders in biomedical informatics, I see future ethicists who may ask you all questions about how you're approaching all of those different traditions. And while you are in different sectors and at different ages and at different stages, you now share the most important thing, a common approach to inquiry. A point of pride at Graham and at this university is that regardless of what you study, our consistent approach to rigor and to open exchange means you always leave with a common set of tools. And those tools will serve you incredibly well in the years ahead. Our world is changing rapidly. I don't need to tell you that. You've been studying it. You've been living it. But just in the last 2 years, every aspect of your work, your sector, has been disrupted by the pandemic, by technology, by the economy. And every time it's presented a new opportunity for innovation, for creativity. And because of your education here, you have learned how to think, not what to think. And so as that disruption inevitably continues, you are going to be exceedingly well prepared for it. And here again, I will come back to the prophetic words of William Rainey Harper as he imagined this university. The chief purpose of graduate work, he said, is not to stock the student's mind with knowledge of what has already been accomplished in a given field, but rather so to train the student that the student may be able to push out along new lines of investigation. And so we hope that you will use your degrees for exactly that, to push new lines of thinking in your fields, to advance the way that your profession does its work, and ultimately to live up to our university's motto, let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched. Congratulations, graduates.
I would now like to welcome our first student speaker, Mara Joyce of the Master of Science in Threat and Response Management.
Good afternoon. Dean Seth Green, Dean of Students Jarquetta Edgiston, members of the Dean's staff, family, friends, faculty, and graduates. I'm honored to address the class for a final time on our graduation day. To give a little bit of background about myself, my name is Maura Joyce. I am a 2018 graduate of the College of the University of Chicago, and for the last 4 years, I've been working in federal government. When I applied to the Threat and Response Management program, I was looking to develop a new set of skills to prepare myself for a hands-on career that allows me to plan for and respond to emergencies. And I know that my time in the TRM program will help me get there. For the last 2 years, we have all gained a strong foundation in the fundamentals of emergency management. We are blessed to have worked with seasoned professionals with backgrounds ranging from medicine to law enforcement to cybersecurity. As our courses wrapped up last month, many of my friends and coworkers began asking me, what's next? What are you going to do now that you have a master's degree? And maybe some of you guys received the same question. My mom's here, and I know she's been asking me and wondering too. My first instinct has been to say something along the lines of, well, I'm thinking about applying for another position in the next year or so, or the risk modeling from our intelligence analysis course is really helping me along with my current project. And after being asked this question so many times, I've really started pondering, what does this degree mean to me? And I know it means a lot more than a new job or a project well done. The question that I should be answering is, how do I make the lessons learned and the knowledge acquired meaningful? So to use some management buzzwords, I have a two-pronged approach to answering this question. I believe that these answers reflect the essence of emergency management as a field dedicated to promoting safety, well-being, and social good. So first, I'll borrow one of my favorite movie quotes, which I heard back in 2002 when I saw Spider-Man with my dad and brother in theaters. I'm going to blame my very dated Marvel knowledge on our capstone and the busyness with school the last 2 years. Someday I'll catch up. Anyway, in the movie, Uncle Ben tells Peter Parker, "With great power comes great responsibility." And I chose this quote because many of us are currently in, or will be in, positions that can impact the safety and well-being of others. And the need for people in such jobs isn't going away. Events like the recent school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic remind us of that every single day. Sometimes it can be really easy to lose sight of the big picture, especially if we can't see how our efforts play into this larger plan. Admittedly, not every training exercise we deliver or emergency operations plan that we help create is going to have a monumental impact on people, but that's not our job. Our job is to work towards being prepared so that when there is a need for people to rely on that training or planning, that they are in good hands. And moving on to my second point, more important than the skills and experiences are the relationships that we've developed. Time and time again, we heard from our guest speakers that developing relationships is key to crisis management. And going forward now, we have each other to lean on, whether that's for assistance during a crisis, for advice, for networking, or for friendship. To members of the cohort, I've really enjoyed learning from you, and even more so, I've enjoyed getting to know you all. Though we didn't get to spend as much time in person together as we'd originally planned, like good emergency managers, we took it in stride and made the best of our live Zoom sessions. In fact, in some ways, Zoom sessions allowed us to get to know each other even better than we might have in person. For example, where's Arif? Somewhere. Arif's positioning of his Zoom camera ensured that we got to know the top third of his head really, really well throughout the last 2 years. Deb. There's Deb. We'll never forget when you were attacked by a bat during class. I'm a city girl. I've never seen a bat so close to a human in my life. And finally, for all you cat lovers out there, when I joined this program, I didn't know that master's students in emergency management are expected to have a pet cat. Frankly, this unwritten rule really should have been included in the application process so that future cohorts have time to make the proper arrangements. But in all seriousness, it's really been great getting to be a part of your lives and seeing some big changes. Throughout the program, a few of us have grown into new job roles. Some classmates are considering using our degree as a launching point for further education. And 3 of our classmates became new parents. Congratulations to Melissa Melm, to Adrienne Navarre, and Eric Gaynor, and to your families. So now we're all part of the TRM community and the larger UChicago alumni community. Even though our time in the program is done, we must continue to build relationships with one another, with former graduates, and with future students. So for my closing words, be proud of where you are today, own your responsibilities, and please keep in touch. That's how we can make our degree have meaning. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Maura. It is now my pleasure to welcome Carmela Martinez from the Master of Arts in Teaching.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, family and friends and staff. I have spent the past few weeks reflecting on what the past 2 years of my life have been like. I started my teaching master's at the height of the pandemic, where everything was so uncertain. I spent the whole first year taking classes and teaching online from my hometown of Palmdale, California. I had just been sent home from my English assistant teaching grant in Germany, and I was living at home with my family, and I was starting this program as a way to have some tangible grasp on the future, a future that was hard to envision sometimes as we watched the news with horror, anxiety, anger, and even resignation. I was scared and uncertain. I was tired. I was feeling the way a lot of us were in 2020. And I felt that the same August of 2021 when I was finally able to move to Chicago, still during the pandemic, and leaving my family behind. And even now, at recent times, I have felt the same way sometimes as I watch the news, as we settle into the pandemic just being normal life, and where violence comes into our consciousness again and again, even in our most sacred places, and we must reckon with the fact that none of it is really by accident. The places that we should feel the safest are not always so. I feel that way, and so do and so did many of our young students as we were student teaching. They were also scared and uncertain. But this year I have also learned a thing or two about myself and just people in general, that we, even like with great tragedy upon us, we will always find ways to stay connected and grow close and see joy and hope through the worst of times, and to love. That was what pulled me through the worst times, and the best times was love. For us in the teaching field, and my cohort mates know this well because we just concluded our year of student teaching, is that so much of what we do has to include a tremendous amount of love. Time and time again, our mentors and our professors reminded us that teaching is a sacred profession, and that what we do is not for the faint of heart. What we do comes with a lot of uncertainty, anxiety, and pressure, but we keep doing what we are doing because at the end of the day, love and the hope of building a better tomorrow is what makes us keep coming back. We see the fire in our young people's eyes and spirits, and we see the brilliance, and we see the hope in them. The moments I will forever remember the most, and the things that have mattered the most, and what I feel is one of the most essential parts of teaching, is, of course, building relationships with each other. And that is where I feel like we learn most about ourselves and the world, and where our resilience and strength comes from, is from the genuine connections we make with others. So again, relationships are not very easy. This program challenged us in many ways, and often the biggest challenges were in how we related to each other. As we learned about ourselves and the world, the teaching profession, we came into conflict and disagreement with each other all the time. Our relationships with mentors were sometimes also not always easy. Our teaching philosophies often came into conflict with each other, and it took a lot of reflection and communication and humility to remember that we all had the same goal, which is to be effective educators. Our relationships with students were also not always easy. One moment you're chatting it up about their favorite anime, and the next you had to put your foot down about something. So some students, for many reasons, did not trust adults no matter what you did. And it was not until the last few days at our placements that they finally realized that there was a connection there with them, and that our high expectations and our firmness was not for no reason. And some students might not even realize the impact we had on them, the love we had for them, until further down the line. Our actions have impacts, and our actions must come from a place of genuine love. I think about the way I was able to make it through these years, and it always comes down to love. My family's endless love and support, my new friends, mentors, and colleagues, people I have grown to respect and love very much, and my students who I loved as their teacher and who I will forever remember. The relationships I have worked on this year were what have gotten me through the best and worst days. For those of us going into service careers, we are in it because we love, because we see the world the way it is, and we know the way that to change these systems is from the inside out. That while politicians fight over what rights we deserve, we fight for the safety and humanity of our communities, those we love the most. The hardest work done is on the ground with and for those we love, and we show up every day despite the fear and uncertainty of it all. I will admit, as I and a lot of my fellow UTEP mates become full-time teachers or pursue other paths, that I am still scared and uncertain. The future can feel bleak at times with so much out of our control, but I know that the strength of the connections I've made with others, we can figure out what we truly stand and fight for. These genuine relationships are the key to understanding each other and for dismantling the systems that oppress so many. With the love we have for our communities and with action, we can move mountains. Thank you, families and mentors, professors, partners, students, everyone, for your endless support and love. We could not have done it without you. Congratulations to the class of 2022. Congratulations to my cohort 18 and all the other Graham School friends. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and I also believe it takes a village to get through grad school. So let's go be that village.
Thank you, Carmela. That was wonderful. Thank you, Mara. That was also wonderful. Can we give them one more round of applause? So it is now my honor to introduce the alumni address speaker, Ann Gehring, who is a member of the class of 2013 for the Master of Liberal Arts. Now, Ann is incredibly accomplished. She helped lead a turnaround at Fannie Mae. She was a managing director at JP Morgan. She also has just recently, in the last few years, started a very successful entrepreneurial endeavor, creating a firm, Stanton Blackwell. That's not why we chose her as our alumni speaker. The reason we chose her is because at every one of those moments, she brought humanistic inquiry. And when we spoke with her about her journey, she told us regularly about how she was constantly trying to solve the problem that wasn't just the bottom line, and how she was constantly bringing the ethical reasoning from this institution into every room she walked into, many of which she was the only woman in the room. And as she built her new firm, she thought beyond just the profit to trying to build a firm that could deploy the talents of people that had been overlooked by our economy. And so as we thought about what does it look like to carry a University of Chicago degree into the world, yes, there may be success, yes, there may be eminence, but at the core, there's a humanistic commitment to inquiry and a want to use that education to better the world. And so it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Ann to give the alumni address.
Can you hear me? Thank you. It's an honor to address the Graham School class of 2022. Momentarily, you are going to be an alum of one of the finest academic institutions in the world, so congratulations. When Dean Green asked me to address you today, he suggested that I talk about the role that my liberal arts education played in my career as a business leader. For 30 years, I worked in the financial services industry. Ultimately, I led large teams of analysts who were tasked with predicting the performance of trillions of dollars of volatile mortgage assets. And I did that without a business degree. I'd like to tell you my story about how that happened. When I was a freshman at Miami University in Ohio, at orientation, I said that I wanted to major in finance. And I received nothing but raised eyebrows. Career options for women in 1982 were still limited. Miami had a large school of home economics. The doubters got to me and I drifted a little bit, but ultimately I graduated in 1986 with a degree in political science and German. I had no idea how to start my career, so I went to one of the temporary staffing agencies, Kelly Services, and told them in my last semester at Miami, I had learned several of the software packages that were being used on the early workplace desktop computers. They sent me to GE Aircraft Engines. with the glamorous title, The Kelly Girl. And there were no Kelly boys. Lucky for me, the CEO of GE, Jack Welch, had a great respect for the liberal arts. He had adopted Peter Drucker's philosophy that leadership is a liberal art. Welch mandated that 50% of his finance hires come from the humanities. And there I sat building spreadsheets on Lotus 123 with a computer that had 16 kilobytes of memory. The laptop I just bought has 16 gigabytes, a million times more. In 1988, I received an offer to join GE's financial management program. There were 60 of us. There was 1 black man, 3 women, and 56 white men. So ironically, I got my job to meet a quota, but not for women, for liberal arts degrees. But by a stroke of luck, I was working in finance. I had a lot of catching up to do, especially in accounting, but I learned pretty quickly that the technical aspects of the job were the easy part. Welch and Drucker were right. When leaders solve complex problems, they draw on the liberal arts. I was always willing to speak about the elephant in the room. I was able to differentiate myself with my ability to articulate and defend arguments, particularly when decision-making moved from the black and white into the gray area. The role of banks in society is to allocate capital and price risk, and this is a process that has not been fair to women and minorities. Banks are heavily regulated to avoid exclusionary practices, but there is still a huge gray area. Institutions like JP Morgan and Fannie Mae, when they make policy, it impacts millions of people. When I was in discussions where we were deciding who would get a loan or where we would draw the mathematical line for loan forgiveness, I always highlighted the ethical consequences of our decisions, namely, who would be excluded. My liberal arts degree and a little salty language acquired on Wall Street prepared me well for this verbal combat, and I won a lot of arguments. 5 years ago, I started my own business. My master's at University of Chicago gave me the intellectual confidence to challenge a well-established corporate labor model. And the labor model excluded a lot of people, particularly women. My partner and I were burned out by the need to hide demands of our personal lives. The labor model we worked in for 30 years was founded decades ago for a different generation of men, almost all of whom had a stay-at-home spouse. We structured our business for people with needs like us. We hire experienced professionals and put them on projects that leverage their skills in human resources, finance, and project management. We also provide them with the flexibility that they need to take care of the people who depend on them. Our clients are middle market companies. Somebody asked me what that is, between 100 million and 500 million in revenues. We offer these rapidly growing companies these resources because they need scalable back office functions to continue their growth. And these two things are a match made in heaven. We also founded our company 5 years ago as a virtual company. We decided that work was a thing we did, not a place we went. We had our doubters. I got a lot of raised eyebrows again, and then COVID happened. And suddenly, a virtual company was smart and modern. And the notion that caretakers struggle in corporate America is widely accepted. We went from naive renegades to visionaries overnight. So, as you graduate into a world where authoritarian leaders try to convince us that an exclusionary past is better than the present, and where debating the gray has been lost to black and white arguments, make no mistake. The value of your liberal arts education as a tool to craft and defend intellectual arguments is more valuable than ever. So use what you've learned in the Graham School and lead. Please lead us to inclusive prosperity. Good luck. Congratulations again, and thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you. We need more leaders like Ann. I would now like to welcome the incomparable Dr. Sam Volchenbaum, who serves as, wait for it, Dean of Master's Education, Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Director, Pediatrics Cancer Data Commons, Associate Director, Institute for Translational Medicine, and Associate Chief Research Informatics Officer. Sam?
Good afternoon, Deans Green, Edgerton, Cohn, and Purnell, Program Director Christine Clark, family, friends, faculty, staff, and graduates. I'm Sam Volchenbaum, a pediatric oncologist, bioinformatician, and faculty director for the Master of Science in Biomedical Informatics. It's an honor to address you today. In 2019, Robert Williams, a black man, was arrested for stealing $4,000 in watches from a store in Detroit. The evidence used to arrest him was a security photo that was matched to his face by an artificial intelligence imaging matching algorithm. Despite it clearly being wrong and the photos obviously different from Williams, he was still detained, questioned, and had to pay $1,000 to get out on bail. Even after being released, he still had to retain a lawyer and show up in court. As it turns out, the company marketing the software did not measure the system's accuracy or bias. An independent investigation showed that the algorithm was indeed biased, falsely identifying black and Asian faces 10 to 100 times more than white faces. Why did this happen? Those of you who are in technology will know that we train computers to think, to be artificially intelligent, by showing them millions of examples. So if no one noticed that the machine was trained on mostly white faces, they wouldn't realize that the algorithm had little idea what to do with images of people of color. Bias went into the design of the system, and bias came out. So why talk about this with graduates in 2022? Whether you are graduating with a degree in biomedical informatics, threat and response, liberal arts, or teaching, you are inheriting jobs that have a legacy of bias, and you need to know how to spot these issues in order to fix them. It is the hope that our graduates have developed a keen eye for justice, a keen eye for injustice in all its forms, and will seek to make a positive change in the world. As the world is increasingly being run by nameless, faceless algorithms, we believe our graduates can be of service to the human side of the equation. Technology is pervasive. Everything from being approved for credit, to deciding who should be released from jail on parole, to matching a patient to precision therapy for cancer, is now being driven by algorithms that may be inherently biased or just outright faulty. Just do a Google image search for CEO, and you'll see a pleasant mix of men, women, and various people of color. But it wasn't always this way. When the original algorithm was implemented, the photos of CEOs were overwhelmingly of white men. Google had to refine the algorithm. But was that original algorithm wrong? Today, CEOs in the US are overwhelmingly white and male. It's reflective of the demographics of those in power. So should Google show results of CEO as they exist today, or the way it should look in a more inclusive world? Another example. When a machine learning algorithm was given simple analogies, it would register that man is to woman as prostate cancer is to ovarian cancer. Not bad. But the same algorithm, when asked to complete the analogy of man is to doctor as woman is to blank, it invariably came up with nurse. It's easy to blame the training data, the examples that the computer studied. But the lack of rigorous testing to identify and, where appropriate, mitigate these problems is an important issue. It will fall on the shoulders of the data scientists who care about humankind. Here's the very human question that you may face. Should you design your search engine so that it accurately mirrors our current reality, or should it reflect the aspiration of American leadership? Many of you will be making ethical decisions and delving into moral quandaries. There is a growing awareness of how the biases of the analog world are carried forward in automation. I'm sure many of you heard the story of how a machine learning-based chatbot trained on the world's view of Twitter became racist and sexist within minutes. How will you leverage your position to make the world a better place? There's a platitude I've heard a lot recently where people say, you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. I disagree. When we say things like that, it means we're giving up on changing the world. It means we're minimizing our impact on the world. As you change the world, you will change, and it's the hope that the moral arc bends toward justice. It's the hope that this graduating class will have an unprecedented level of empathy toward the marginalized and disenfranchised. It's the hope that you'll make housing loan algorithms that strive for a more fair society and move away from the current system of discrimination. At the core of this issue is the question, do you care? Are you aware of the injustices and biases in our society? Are you open to learning about the mistakes of the past? Do you feel passionately about changing things in your career? Or do we wait for the generation to come along next to make it better? By opening up our eyes to injustice and putting into practice a correction of the way the world works, we can shape the systems that control our fate. Machine learning uses data from the past to make decisions about the future. But is that the best way to make decisions? What if machine learning studied the data of a better world and then showed us how to make those changes? Why build machines that only look at the past and never dream of a better future? Believing that there is a better world to fight for is the first step in changing the world. Being honest with ourselves about the biases we hold is the first step. In the powerful documentary, Picture a Scientist, the women researching gender bias discover that they fail their own bias discovery exercises. Knowing that you have biases doesn't make them go away. It takes rigorous honesty and a deep commitment to making the world a more fair place. It requires us to look within ourselves. So when you dive into the world of artificial intelligence and corporate culture, it's going to be your opportunity to fight for injustice as you define it. You'll make your own way as you shape your belief systems, and your belief system will form your algorithms. They will shape your machine learning. You will learn to recognize a greater truth. This graduating class probably has more empathy than any generation that has come before. And if you bring that with you into your roles as future leaders, you will change the world. Thank you.
We will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Liberal Arts, Master of Science in Biomedical Informatics, Master of Science in Threat and Response Management, and Master of Arts in Teaching.
On behalf of Tim Murphy, the director of the Master of Liberal Arts program, it is my honor to present these students who have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. They have been awarded the degree Master of Liberal Arts by the Board of Trustees. Will the recipients of the degree Master of Liberal Arts please rise and proceed to the stage to receive your degree?
Paul Dave. Ohana Qatar. Mandeep Kumar. Jingnan Liu. Beverly Riley. Joyce Westfall. Edna B. Williams.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Morley Cohen. I'm the Managing Director of University of Chicago Professional Education. Unfortunately, Chris Clark, the Director of the Master of Science in Biomedical Informatics program, as well as the Threat and Response Management program, was unable to be here. But on her behalf, I would like to extend our heartfelt congratulations to all of the graduates here today. It is my honor to present these students who have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine B. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. They have been awarded the degree Master of Science in Biomedical Informatics by the Board of Trustees. Will the recipients of the degree Master of Science in Biomedical Informatics please rise and proceed to the stage to receive your degree?
Mustafa Aga. Anthony Beard. Sherrod Crosby. Gozar Daya. Ashwarya Ganesh. Emma Hager Miller. Ala Kassir. Wase Han. Alexandra Ligai. Sonia Makni. Stephanie Marshalik. Matthew Magala. Aneri Pandya. Yulia Radchenko. Tara Radford. Tina Rodriguez. Hannah Sham. Harpreet Singh. Edward Sun. Nicholas Willoughby.
And now it is my honor to present these students who have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. They have been awarded the degree Master of Science in Threat and Response Management by the Board of Trustees. Will the recipients of the degree Master of Science in Threat and Response Management please rise and proceed to the stage to receive your degree?
Aref Abdelatif. Mariam Abukhald. Diana Acevedo. Anna Marie Avino Akukal. Nadine Bakri. Young Cho. Kathleen Shakuris. Juan Covarrubias. Janelle Crumpton. Gerard M. Evans. Eric and Lennox Gaynor. Fiona Georgiakis. Olivia Gilliland. Andres Guevara. Carl Haidu. Mara Joyce. Robert Kaiser. Valerie Lewis. Deborah Lucia. Melissa Mom. Kyle Maddie. Cornelius Miller. Adrian Navarre. Maxwell Novoselic. Tristan Noyes. Mary Pantley. Syed Quadri. Keely Spencer. Eric Villarreal. Sativa Volbrecht. Madonna Walsh. Arthur Wolf.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tanisha Legault Washington. I'm the interim director of UTEP, the Urban Teacher Education Program. It is my honor to present these students who have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies. They have been awarded the degree Master of Arts in Teaching by the Board of Trustees. Will the recipients of the degree Master of Arts in Teaching please rise and proceed to the stage to receive your degree.
Tyler Anderson. Sophia Barnett. Samaya Butler. Catherine Carnes. Aisha Hughes. Angela Lawson. Kayla McLean. Sydney Moore. Laura Elena Pulido. Brittany Spicer. Eunice Zepeta. Carmela Martinez. May we have another round of applause for our degree graduates? think we all need this right now. We have invited a special group to today's event so that we can recognize their deep commitment to learning. As one of the first extension schools in the country, the Graham School of Continuing and Liberal and Professional Studies is a place that allows learners to go deeper into what you love. As such, we would like to recognize this year's cohort of students in the Professional Development Certificate in Clinical Trials Management and Regulatory Compliance, which offers rigorous clinical research training on U.S. regulatory practices and standards. When you hear your name, please join me on stage. Christina Chivato. Maria Corominas. Mary Alberca Diaz Plaza. Laura Maldonado. Sophia Megalon. Fernanda Millans. Claudia Ramos Alvarez. We reached out to the THEU team who are home in Madrid and asked them to add to today's remarks. Here's what they wanted you to know. These last 2 years have been hard and complicated as we have faced an unprecedented pandemic situation. The University of Chicago and THEU University has made a tremendous effort so that the pandemic had the minimum possible impact on the academic training of its students, an effort sustained over a long time. However, dear students, all that effort would have been in vain without your collaboration, understanding, and your total dedication. Neither the efforts of the academic coordinators from THEU, nor the efforts of all the program managers and instructors involved in the clinical trials management program at the University of Chicago would have been enough to overcome such adverse circumstances without the unconditional support of you and your families. We are very glad to finally achieve the milestone we celebrate today, the graduation of the THEU students from the 11th cohort in the Certificate in Clinical Trials Management and Regulatory Compliance at the University of Chicago. Congratulations. Lastly, your program manager, Omar, asks that we let you know that it was his pleasure to work with you. Graduates, we would now like to give you the opportunity to recognize and thank the friends and family who have joined in your celebration today and whose support of you has helped make today possible. I would like to share a special thank you to all academic and support staff for your efforts in supporting the graduates and the student experience. Thank you. We now invite all graduates and guests to a reception located in the atrium just outside of this auditorium. Guests, Please remain in your seats until after the Dean's Party and graduates have left the hall. Thank you for your commitment and hard work.